Well, I don't really believe in perfection, but I do think there are some books, movies, whatever you want to call them, that come pretty close. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Smoky Dude, and I'm back with another video. I have been tagged once again by my good buddy Raph. He got revenge on me after I tagged him in my reading philosophy video. He's like, well, I'm going to get Britton back by talking about reading perfection. I don't really believe in perfection, but there are some books out there that I think are pretty close. So I guess I'll just talk about those today, kind of like what I said in the preview, if you will, the intro. Sorry, I meant to say. This was originally started by Lecton from Reading from the Depths, who a lot of people have actually told me I should talk to on my podcast because, and I definitely would love to at some point. He seems like a really interesting guy. I mean, there's not a lot of Buddhist monks out there who've made YouTube channels. I mean, I'm sure they exist, but probably not one who talks about fantasy and horror and the type of books that Lecton talks about on his channel. He has a good channel running over there. Check him out. I'll link his original video in the description if you guys want to watch it and see kind of what he's going for. But this tag was based on Buddhist philosophy. So, yeah, I've always kind of had an interest in Buddhism, kind of a passing interest. I don't know if I necessarily believe in it, per se. I think this is Buddhism anyway. Let me actually look on his channel real quick. This is kind of embarrassing. He is a Tibetan Buddhist, so I got it right. So yeah, I'll just leave that in there because that's not embarrassing at all. Anyway, I might seem a little more low-key than usual today. I'm a bit tired, so I'm just going to kind of get through this. You guys know I love to ramble, so I'll try and get through these answers as quickly as possible, but I make no promises because, you know, I like to ramble, so yeah. Anyway, this is based on Buddhist philosophy a little bit, so I'm going to go through them and see kind of what I think. So, yeah, let's get to it. So, number one, the first question is about the perfection of generosity. What is an experience of either book gifting or book receiving that was meaningful or memorable for you? Well, there are a couple instances. I've given my dad a couple of books. I think I've given my mom a couple of books too. But those haven't really, those don't really, well, I did give my dad a biography from Bob Stoops, the OU coach. He really enjoyed that book. But anyway, but for me, I really, this was kind of a mixed answer. Well, there's two answers to this. One is when my good friend Jason Furman, he runs a good YouTube channel, he actually gifted me the Southern Reach trilogy a while back, and even gave me the fourth book, the new book at the time. This was last year, for my he gave the trilogy to me for my birthday, and he gave Absolution because it came out and he wanted me to read it. I have them back there. I didn't want to pull them out because I'm lazy and I don't want to frickin' pull them out, to be honest. But I really appreciated that he had took the time, because we're both very passionate about this trilogy. He took the time, he had thought of me, he got all these books, and he had sent them to me. I hadn't expected the gift. And he actually, funnily enough, for my birthday this year, he gave me House of Leaves, because I'm always like, what do you see in that book? So he decided to give it to me because he's like, well, you go see for yourself, basically. And so, yeah, I always appreciated that. And that was very kind of him. Another one that really sticks to my mind, my cousin, one of my younger cousins, for Christmas actually gave me a book called The Laughing Monsters by Dennis Johnson, who, if you recall, in one of my recent videos, he's an author I've wanted to check out for a long time now. Now, I'll admit, I don't know if she knew I wanted to read Dennis Johnson for a while because, she was just picking this book out at random and she knew I enjoyed reading. But she gave me The Laughing Monsters, and I really appreciated that she had thought of me and gave me that book. And, she was very little, so that really meant a lot, too. She knew that I liked to read, so she gave me this book, so I always really appreciated that. So I guess that's my answer for number one, is kind of a mix of those two answers. Jason giving me the Southern Reach trilogy, and my cousin giving me the Laughing Monsters as a gift for Christmas. I really enjoyed that gift quite a bit. I really appreciated it a lot. Number 2 is The Perfection of Ethical Discipline. This is kind of a hard one. This is a bit of a deep one here. But what are your best and worst reading habits? Well, that's a bit of an easier question. My best habits, I can read really fast. My brain moves fast, so I can process information very quickly, which can frustrate people, especially my dad. He's driven crazy by the fact that I can just read stuff real quickly and move on to the next thing, because he's just, he's always fumbling around. But I can read really quickly. I try to be disciplined in my reading, so I think that's also a good habit. Worst habit is kind of a double-edged sword, though. Kind of cuts into the worst habit on the quickness of my reading. Sometimes I read so fast, I sometimes lose track of where I'm at, and I have to go back and figure it out where I'm at, and then kind of catch myself up. And another bad habit of mine, I would say, kind of to paraphrase something from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I am the most easily distractible creature on the planet. Like, I start reading sometimes, and then I'll be like, oh, wait, what's that over there? That's why I don't really do audiobooks. I find I focus a lot more when I have a physical book like this one. This is just my big nowhere copy. But yeah, those are kind of the best and worst reading habits, I should say. But yeah, no, I'm really bad at getting distracted. And sometimes I forget where I stopped reading when I kind of stopped to, like, get a drink or something. And I'll have to come back and figure out, where I was. So yeah, sometimes that quickness of reading can be both a gift and a curse. But yeah, I would say those are my best and worst habits when reading. So, number 3 is The Perfection of Patience. What is a book that you anxiously waited for, and did it live up to your expectations you set for it? Well, there's been a couple of books like that over the years that I've read, some of which I've talked about on my channel, so I won't really belabor that point. But one I'll talk about, one I've been actually thinking about a lot recently, The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. I read it about 2 years ago, about when I started the channel up again, and really enjoyed it. It mostly lived up to what I had hoped for. I really wanted it to be kind of this love letter to comics, and it very much is, don't get me wrong. But it also surprised me with how emotional it got, and it was very touching at points, in manners that, in ways that I didn't expect initially. And I really enjoyed the characters as well. I think Michael Chabon has a very deep care for the characters that he writes about. You definitely see it in Kavalier and Clay, and even the one that I read this year, which is the Yiddish Policeman's Union. Also, you can tell that he very much cares about the characters he ends up writing about, and none more so much than The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay. But I really enjoyed the Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay. I just think it's a really good book. Even if you like comics or don't, I think it's still a really great story about these two guys, these two cousins, I should say, who are just kind of trying to make it in a world that is in a very complicated place at the moment, because it takes place in the early 40s, which the early 40s was when World War II was really starting. And, there's a lot of discussions on being Jewish and the Jewish experience and anti-Semitism. There's a lot of discussion about that in The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay, and how many of these Jewish writers and artists, guys like, Siegel and Schuster and Will Eisner and Jack Kirby, many of these guys, how many of them have found a voice for their beliefs and what they valued in superhero comics. And I think it's just a very beautiful thing, and really shows why not only superhero comics are awesome, but also why American comics are great. And I want more people to read The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay, because it's a really good book. And it was one that I definitely waited a long time to get to, and I wasn't disappointed once I ended up reading it. So, yeah, not much else to say. Number 4, The Perfection of Joyful Effort. What is a book or series that you found difficult to complete but found to be ultimately worthwhile? This was another kind of complicated one because there was a couple of these I thought about picking. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell was up in the running, but I decided to go with another fantasy book that really enraptured me, and that's Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James. It took me about 6 months to almost a year to fully read Black Leopard Red Wolf because it was just that intense. You know, it was just that immensely what's the term I'm looking for? Not necessarily difficult, but it's not an easy read by any measure. It's a testing read, I think is a good term for it. There were moments I just had to put the book down, and it was really about the time when I finally kind of kicked myself in the order and finally kind of got my act together and making myself more disciplined with my reading is when I ended up finishing Black Leopard Red Wolf. But it took me a while because it is such a dense and bewildering and often feverishly intense book that just completely takes a sledgehammer to the fantasy genre as we know it. It's definitely not for everybody. I've recommended it to a few people. I've had some friends who've really enjoyed it, and I've had some friends who don't. And it can be a bit disappointing when people don't enjoy it. But I really enjoyed reading it. I really enjoyed the experience of going through it. And I was also helped from a Reddit thread, the Dark Star Trilogy Reddit thread, which I also recommend for anyone who is reading the Dark Star books for the first time. Really great people over there. Which I know kind of weird thing to say about a Reddit thread, but it's definitely true. I think there's some really good people over there who really did their due diligence when kind of going through Black Leopard Red Wolf, and even Moonwitch Spider King for that matter. You might even see posts from me on there because I sometimes post on there. But anyway, I remember when I finished Black Leopard Red Wolf and just being utterly bewildered by it because it was kind of pitched to me as this sort of African Game of Thrones, which it most definitely isn't. So don't go into it expecting an African Westeros because it's very much not that. Though Marlon James has kind of gone on to say that that was a joke that he made to try and pitch the series, but you know, whatever works. But it ended up being this really piercing dissection into trauma and truth. What does the truth actually mean? And the nature of storytelling and how people use storytelling to make sense of the world. So stuff that really appeals to me in fantasy, which is what I think fantasy should often be about, because fantasy is ultimately about the imagination, about stories. But anyway, Black Leopard Red Wolf. I know it's one I've harped on about because, you know, not a lot of people talk about it on BookTube, so somebody's got to do it. But it's a fantastic book. It is not for the faint of heart, but I've read it about 2 times now, and it is, I think, is well worth the read. So, yeah, give Black Leopard Red Wolf a shot. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Number 5, The Perfection of Concentration. What do you do, if anything, to get into a reading zone? What is your ideal reading environment? Well, my ideal reading environment is kind of the place you're seeing right now. I generally read in here. This is generally where I live. I don't really, I go places, but I hang out with friends. But generally, I hang out here when I'm at home, and generally, I just kick back. I pick up my book. I set up the time, which is around nighttime because I prefer night reading. And I just go for it. So, yeah, I don't know if I really do anything to get into a reading zone. I just kind of pick up the book and start going. Though I have started immersion reading recently because I'm reading another Marlon James book, A Brief History of 7 Killings, right now. And that's definitely a book that I wouldn't recommend reading just by itself. It's definitely a book that I got on audiobook so that I could really immerse myself into the experience. And there are even parts of the book that have been enhanced, I think, by the performances in the audiobook version of A Brief History of 7 Killings. So definitely that's kind of the answers to those questions. So yeah, definitely that. So that's for question 5. Number 6, the final question here. Let's see. The Perfection of Wisdom. What is a book where you learned something, especially something unexpected, whether profound or mundane? I hate to say a cop-out here, but like I find every book teaches you something. Even bad books, I think, teach you something about like what not to do. But to think of a more specific book, I'll think of a book that really surprised me with its insight. I'm going to talk about The Prophet by Michael Koreeda, which is a book I actually started not too long, actually, before... actually, not long after I started the current version of the channel we have now, which was like January 2023. I ended up reading it because, for one, I really love crime fiction, and also I love American football, and those two things are in that book. So I'm like, well, I'm going to enjoy it. And I did. I got a lot of that. But there's also this very probing, very deep exploration into trauma and grief and guilt that I wasn't expecting, that really grabbed me in a way that I didn't anticipate. And I don't know if it's the most sophisticated book I've ever read on those particular subjects, but it definitely emotionally grabbed me in a way that I hadn't expected, which, you know, I think that's what great books should do. They should really catch up to you in a time when you're not really expecting it. But that book in particular is one that really not only taught me a lot, but it's definitely a book that surprised me with its insight on the subjects that it tackles. Hello, kitty cat. What are you doing here? Just busting down my door, I see. So yeah, I'll just go with the The Prophet. And what did The Prophet teach me? I mean, it taught me a lot about grief and trauma and coming to terms with that stuff. But also taught me to hold on to the people I have in my life and to not take them for granted. Because if you do, you might end up kind of like the characters in the book, The Prophet, which is a very underrated crime novel, a very underrated book in general. I think more people should read it. If you love like Dennis Lehane stuff, like Mystic River, give that book a crack. It is really good. I mean, you don't even have to like football. It's just a really damn good book. So, yeah, I even did a review of it a long time ago. The audio is probably shitty on it, but, you know, what are you going to do? It was when I first got started. It was on my phone, so maybe the audio isn't that bad. It's on this little rinky-dink phone here, so there you go on that. But, yeah, so that's kind of it for the questions. People to tag. I decided to tag Jason again. I was a bit hesitant because, you know, I wanted to give him a break, but you know what? I would like to see him tackle this video because I think he would have some interesting answers for that. Also tag my friend Jay, the Reverend Jay, from A Contemplative Reader. He's a good dude. I really enjoy his channel, and he's also just a great guy. Samwise, I want him to make one of these videos one of these days. I'll keep tagging him until he does it. And David from Four Corners of the Page, because I've become friendly with him recently, and he's just a really great, very intelligent guy who I enjoy talking with. He's a great dude. Though it's been kind of hard reaching him recently. He's moved to Japan, so I wish him good luck with that. So, yeah, that's basically it in terms of the tag and who I hope to tag in this video. So, yeah, pretty much that's kind of all I got. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the cameo from my cat here. She's, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, you like that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. You can also find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd. Right reviews. They're probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Instagram and Blue Sky, because I'm starting to get the hang of it. So, you know, find me on there. I don't really post all that much on there because generally it's Twitter where I go to rant about stuff. But yeah, anyway, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you do all that fun stuff that comes along with reading. That comes along with watching YouTube. What am I talking about? You can tell how burned out I am today because I'm just flubbing everywhere. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Not really much else to say, but hope you guys enjoyed this. So, see you guys later. Bye-bye.